I'm neurodivergent. I live on the spectrum. I have ADHD and I am dyslexic. I've known since I was small that I was different. We didn't call it neurodivergence back then or learning differences. People like me were just called learning disabled. In 2019, I began my public journey as an advocate for neurodivergent people by presenting at a tech conference in Amsterdam. That session told my story of being a neurodivergent person navigating a neurotypical world, mostly without understanding my differences. I'd spent quite a few years at that point researching my daughter's own challenges. We adopted her from social services at the age of 5, and her experiences before she came to us were traumatic. So I went to classes and seminars because I needed to understand as much as I could about her neurodivergence so I could be her advocate. Doing this research led to light bulb after light bulb going off in my head as I recognized a lot about myself. In a very real way, if it hadn't been for my daughter, I would have just continued barely coping, and I never would have understood my own ADHD and dyslexia. And I certainly wouldn't have had the explosive realization that I was on the autism spectrum. Now, this is the 22nd talk that I've participated in since that first one in 2019. And I'm grateful to have been asked to participate in this one today. Across my life, sensory overwhelm has been a constant thread, and it shows up everywhere. From my childhood, where noise, lights, rapid speech, dense emotional environments could push me into shutdown, to adulthood, when even everyday tasks require management of distraction, time blindness, and emotional intensity. In a recent MRI for a shoulder injury that I have, that familiar overwhelm came roaring back. The mechanical blasts, the vibration through my chest, and the confinement of having my head and shoulders inside the bore hit my autistic and ADHD nervous system fast and hard. It wasn't fear, it was physiology responding to a space never designed for my neurology. The same sensory and cognitive patterns run through the experiences documented throughout my life. Intense emotional reactivity, difficulty modulating joy and anger, deep empathy, auditory sensitivity, short attention span, working memory challenges, and the constant effort required to navigate environments that assume everyone processes the world in the same way. So I thought I'd use my personal experiences in this little talk. In reviewing several medical journals to prepare, it turns out my experience is far from being unique. So what looks like overreacting or distractibility from the outside has always been the lived reality of a brain wired for intensity, not for conformity. So what I'd like you to do for a moment is imagine an autistic adult arriving for an MRI. They can consent, they understand the purpose, they want to cooperate. But when they get close to that scanner, the noise, the lights, the vibration, the confinement, all of that sensory intensity pushes their nervous system past their own threshold. What this means is they move. The sequence corrupts. The scan fails. Now we're talking about repeat imaging, maybe sedation, higher costs, longer wait times, and more stress for everyone involved. None of that happened because the patient was difficult. It happened because the environment was incompatible to how their brain processes sensory input. When we change the environment, compliance improves, success improves. The problem was design, not the patient. Alice Rowe writes, "It's hard to filter when there are lots of other sounds going on. I feel like I end up processing everything. It's very stressful, irritating, and overwhelming." Now, for a moment, let's shift to the other side of the room. An autistic clinician working in NeuroRadiology, they have a strong pattern recognition, deep focus strengths, and exceptional analytical reasoning, skills this field depends on. But daily workflow includes rapid-fire conversation, sometimes unpredictable schedule shifts, interruptions, bright lighting, noise, and social nuance that has nothing to do with clinical quality. Workplace culture and social expectations can be tough and confusing. Unspoken rules, office politics, and networking pressure can be confusing and exhausting. Executive dysfunction, common with folks who have ADHD or autism, can make time management, prioritization, and deadline tracking more challenging. And masking, hiding those neurodivergent traits to fit in, can lead to burnout and anxiety. Dr. Maureen Dunn, author of The Neurodiversity Edge, writes, neurodivergent people often engage in an arduous process of fitting in, known as masking, where enormous energy is expended through superficial impression management and deeply felt stress to hide neurodivergent traits. They spend enormous cognitive energy masking, performing normal while trying to stay regulated. Direct communication gets misread as rude. Need for predictability gets framed as inflexibility. This person isn't struggling with the work. They're struggling with the environment layered on top of the work. And when we lose clinicians like this to burnout or attrition, we lose exactly the kinds of minds that help prevent diagnostic anchoring and groupthink. Universal design is a concept that involves designing products and environments to be usable by as many people as possible, regardless of age, size, ability, or disability. The goal is to maximize usability without the need for specialized design or adaptation. Universal design can be applied to many things, including buildings, services, tools, learning strategies, and physical spaces. It focuses on equity in design. Universal design means removing barriers before someone has to ask. It's not about retrofitting accommodations after a problem happens. It means building systems, environments that work for the widest range of brains by default without relying on their disclosure. Universal design increases clarity, predictability, and sensory stability. It reduces cognitive load. And when you design better for neurodivergent people, you make the environment better for everyone else too. So let's just for a moment apply universal design to patient imaging. And I'd like to start with sensory load, things that make it more difficult for people to cope. Things that can help are things like dimmable lights, reduced visual clutter, and noise-reducing headphones. They're simple fixes. Provide predictable guidance. Tell patients exactly what sounds they'll hear and when. Use a visual timeline. Give them clear steps. Use literal communication, short sentences, and no figurative language. And then check understanding without judgment. These are low-cost, high-impact changes. They reduce anxiety, reduce movement, reduce sedation, and improve imaging quality across the board. Now, I bet that these are all things that you think about already. But what about the needs of the staff who are neurodivergent? How much is being done to support their needs? Things that you can do include giving staff access to quiet, low-sensory recovery spaces. Even 10 minutes of decompression can prevent hours of reduced performance. Build predictable workflows, structured handoffs, written agendas, clear sequences, and reduce the cognitive task of ambiguity. Offer flexible communication, things like written follow-ups, asynchronous messaging, and always set clear expectations. These changes are inexpensive, and they support neurodivergent clinicians without singling anyone out. The payoff is stronger retention, fewer errors, and a healthier department culture. Universal design benefits everyone. For patients, fewer rescans, fewer sedations, lower anxiety, and better diagnostic outcomes. For clinicians, less masking, less burnout, clearer communication, and stronger cognitive performance. This is not special treatment. It's quality improvement for everyone. NeuroRadiology is built on understanding the brain. Universal design is designing environments so more kinds of brains, patients and clinicians, can do their best work. Thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to speak for the last 10 minutes. If you're interested in the sources for this little talk, I've provided them here. And thanks very much for having me speak.